Professor Diljit Singh from Department of Library Information Science, University of Malaya, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and all the participants, a very good morning to you all. I, Professor Preeti Mahajan, on behalf of the Department of Library Information Science, University Chandigarh, and on my own behalf, welcome you all in the 16th webinar, which is a part of the webinar series being hosted by the department on the theme Information Generation, Dissemination and Use During COVID-19 Lockdown. The theme of the webinar series was selected in order to enhance the professional knowledge through dissemination of information on cutting-edge technology and utilize the period of lockdown in the productive academic activity. At the very onset, let me introduce the speaker of today's webinar. Today we have amongst us Professor Diljit Singh, who recently retired from the Department of Library Information Science, University of Malaya, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, where he served for more than 19 years. He is currently an adjunct professor at the University of Colombo in Sri Lanka and a visiting professor at University of Philippines in Manila. Prior to joining the university, Professor Diljit served as a high school teacher, as assistant director in the Pahang State Education Department and at the Aminuddin Baki Institute, Ministry of Education, Malaysia. He is actively involved in library associations at the local as well as at international levels. He is the immediate past president of the International Association of School Librarianship. He has also served on IFLA's standing committees on Asia, Oceania, and for school libraries. He is currently a member of IFLA's Building Strong LIS Education Working Group. He has supervised 18 PhD theses and 45 master's dissertations. He has also published widely in local, regional, and international journals and has presented at local and international conferences, including a number of keynote addresses. He is currently on the editorial boards or committees of 3 international journals, that is IFLA Journal, Global Knowledge, Memory and Communication, which was earlier known as Library Review, and Library International Journal of Libraries and Information Studies. His professional and research interests include information literacy, management of libraries and information services, school libraries, and LIS education. He also takes a keen interest in the effective and efficient use of information for socio-economic development. Today, Professor Diljit Singh would be speaking on research, publishing, and continuing professional development during the COVID-19 lockdown. Before I hand over the proceedings to Professor Diljit, may I advise all the participants not to share your name, email, good morning messages, etc. in the chat box, as such information only blocks the view of the presentation for the presenter as well as the participants. It is to be filled only in the Google form, which we would be sharing during the webinar. Please also note that we do not share the form link anywhere else after the webinar. Please share your questions to the speaker in the chat or in the question and answer box, please. Over to Professor Diljit, please. Dr. Sab, I'm making you the presenter. Yes, now you can share your screen, please. That's it.
Thank you, Professor Preeti Mahajan. Thank you for that kind introduction. Kind of a little bit lengthy, but thank you anyway. I also want to thank Dr. Kushpreet and Ms. Neha for making the background arrangements for this webinar here. It's to be involved in this webinar, and I hope that I can share something with you all in there. Distinguished guests, professors, lecturers, librarians, students, and ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all. And since we have a diverse audience, namaskar, namaste, sat sri akal, assalamu alaikum, whichever cultural group you belong to. To those whom I understand that there are easily about 140 participants in this group here. To those whom I have met, it's nice to meet again, even though it is online. And to those whom I have not met before, I I hope that this will be the first of the meetings. I hope to see you or meet you at some other point in the future. Anyway, greetings to all of you, and thank you for joining this webinar. I hope that you will get some benefit from this webinar, whether it is big or small, but I hope that you will benefit in some way. Professor Preeti has already introduced me, so let me sort of very briefly indicate what I do. As I said, as Professor Preeti said, I retired from the University of Malaya about a few years ago, but I still keep myself active, serving as an adjunct or visiting professor in other universities, and I also am active on the editorial boards of 3 international journals. I'm still active in professional organizations in ISL and IFLA, and I'm currently involved in the Working Committee on Building Strong LIS Education, or BS-LISE, within IFLA. So even though I've retired, but I'm still active in different ways in that. Anyway, what I would like to share with you today is about research and publishing and on continuing professional development. What I would like to talk about is for us to become aware of some of the changes that are taking place around us. And the focus of this one is on COVID-19 pandemic. But at the same time, we need to be aware that there are social, technological, economic, political, cultural changes that are taking place around us. And these, in some ways, pose challenges for libraries. But while there are challenges, there are also opportunities. And I hope that, this is where, with the exchange of knowledge, with the sharing of knowledge that we have through webinars like these, we can take advantage of the opportunities. And one of the opportunities that we have is that for research and publishing. So I want to sort of bring across the message that there is a need for librarians to do research and to publish, perhaps more than what is being done now, but also at the same time take advantage of this COVID-19 lockdown to be involved with continuing professional development and workplace learning, or what is abbreviated to CPDWL for librarians. So this is something that I would like to touch on in the next hour or so. And I want to relate this to the theme of your webinars. Okay, the theme of your webinars relates to information generation, dissemination, and use during the COVID-19 lockdown. Well, there are many ways of generating information, but what I would like to suggest, what I would like to push for is information generation through research. That through research, you are able to generate more information, and then that research findings that you get need to be disseminated. And one of the ways of disseminating that information is through publishing. I know many of you do publish, but I hope that this will take you to an even higher level in terms of publications. We also want to use that information that we generate, or at the same time that is available to us all around us. So I would like to sort of bring about the point in terms of using that information for our professional development. Professional development for ourselves, professional development for the profession, for the organization that we are working with. And we are now, at least at various stages in different countries, facing the lockdown because of COVID-19. They pose a number of challenges to us. But at the same time, there are also opportunities that come about during this lockdown. And I hope to sort of touch on some of these opportunities that are available to us so that you can make use of them in here. So what I hope is that at the end of this presentation, the participants, and there are a number of you, very diverse group in there, that you'll be more aware of the challenges and opportunities for professional development during and beyond this COVID-19 lockdown. I mean, yes, many of us are now facing a lockdown, but it will not last forever. Now, whether it lasts for another 2 weeks or 2 months or 1 year, we really do not know. But there are opportunities for us to develop further at the end or after this lockdown. I also hope that you will be able to make some firm plans, some action plans on research, publishing, and continuing professional development for the short-term and medium-term future. Short-term meaning over the next few weeks or few months, what is it that the opportunities that you have, what can you take advantage of in terms of continuing professional development, and perhaps even think in terms of some of the medium-term plans. What are you going to do over the next 1 year or 2 years or so? Using these opportunities that we have during this lockdown period in here to make things better for ourselves. I want to point out that this is not a presentation on how to do research or how to publish. I think this is already covered in many of the LIS courses. I know that among the audience here, we have a number of professors who are more knowledgeable than I am, and you can easily share the thing. But if at some point, if we need to, there's a need for a seminar specifically on research, on publishing, on continuing professional development, I shall be happy to do with it in there. In this 1 hour, it is almost impossible to tell you how to do the research or how to publish or how to get involved with CPD. So this is more of a sharing of ideas, not how to do something in there. That we can do later, or you have enough talent amongst yourselves that you can also work on it there. And this can well be a continuing professional development for yourself, in terms of if you want to find out, say, for example, something related to open access publishing. There are lots of resources that are available, so this could be something that you are working on yourself. So what I hope the long-term aims from this webinar would be that you get the knowledge and the motivation that lead to action plans that you will develop for yourself. And these action plans relate to more research, more publications, and more professional developments from those people who are involved with this webinar here. What I hope is that it will lead to is better services within the library community. You have better libraries, better librarians, better services, and then the ultimate goal of it is the betterment of society. The libraries are there for a purpose, and the main role is to help raise the level of society in some ways. So what I hope is that this will contribute in a small way to the betterment of society in the long term. Okay, so let's get started on it in there. I think all of us are aware that the major concern these days is the coronavirus, the COVID-19 virus. We hear lots of news about it every day. We get lots of messages that are coming to us on social media. It's almost in every news channel, whether it is television or newspapers or social media or messages that we are receiving on WhatsApp or other channels that we have, applications that we have in there. There is a lot of talk about COVID-19 virus in there. And the impact of this COVID-19 is in many, many different areas. Primarily, of course, we are very concerned about the effect of it on human lives. And I'll show you some figures in the next few slides in terms of what is the impact of it. But there's also an economic impact that is taking place. Many of the small businesses are suffering. Even the large organizations, large companies are suffering. So there is a severe economic impact, and depending on how long it will last, we may see some major changes taking place. We also have some social impacts that are taking place within the family, with relationships with each other. We see impact on the political scene. There are many political developments that are taking place which are impacted by this COVID-19 pandemic. Cultural changes that are taking place. I just received a news flash a couple of days ago that telling me that, hey, the television programs that you're watching, the movies that you're watching, actually were produced many months ago. There are very few new television programs, very few new movies that are being produced in the last few months. So that is also having an effect. The pandemic is also having an effect. Education is greatly affected. I don't know about in India, but in Malaysia, all the schools are still closed. They are opening in stages on June 25th, but many of the non-examination classes are still going to be closed for now. And this is causing an effect in there. Although they are offering online classes, but the impact of it, the receiving of it is not the same. So it is having an effect on education. There's also the psychological effect. Stress has increased among many people. There are issues within families. There are issues at the workplace. So there are psychological impact of the COVID-19 pandemic too. And there are many other areas. I mean, it's sort of a very long list that we can go into in terms of what is the impact of it in there. What is the impact on the human lives? As of yesterday, we had more than 75 lakh cases. We have had more than 4 lakh people dying all over the world. And within India itself, there are almost 3 lakh cases of the pandemic. These are the ones that are reported. There are some that have not been reported. We don't know about it in there. There are more than 8,000 deaths that have taken place within India itself. So this is taking an impact in there. So the numbers are increasing. This was as of yesterday. I mean, if you look at it today, the number of cases in India is probably closer to 3 lakh. So it is having an impact on the health, on the society, in many others, as we pointed out before. It's also having an impact on many other industries. The aviation industry is suffering greatly. The airlines in India have reduced their services. Even in Malaysia, the airlines have only started with the domestic services as of a few days ago. The international services are due to start next month. But certainly, one of the airlines in Malaysia has said that they are beginning to lay off some of the people who are working in there. And these include the pilots, the cabin crew, the engineers, and others in there. So the aviation industry is taking a hit in that. Businesses are affected, especially the smaller businesses who do not have much reserves. Education is affected. Food and restaurants are affected. Many of them are having lower sales in there. The performing arts are affected. There are very few cultural performances these days because they don't want crowds in the audience. Religious events are affected. I'm sure this is happening in India too, but in Malaysia, practically all the gurdwaras are closed. They are having online services that you can follow what is going on there, but they do not encourage people to go to the gurdwara. And I'm sure it is the same with mandirs and mosques and churches and other places too. Social events are either being cancelled or postponed. Birthdays, wedding parties, and all those are being postponed or even cancelled. I know of a couple who was supposed to get married in July this year, and they have postponed their wedding until we don't know when. So it affects their family plans. Sports events have been cancelled. For those who enjoy the field sports like hockey or football or where there are crowd gathering, they are not being held, so therefore it's an audience there. I don't know about in India, but in many parts of the world, the English Premier Soccer League is very widely followed. Well, no football matches for the next few months. Tourism is down. Malaysia has very few international tourists coming in. Many other countries are like that. Some of the hotels are closing down. About 2 weeks ago, there was an announcement of, some of the major hotels on sale. But in these days, who wants to buy a hotel because we don't know whether there will be a crowd coming in or not. So it is affecting many, many different industries in there. Of course, you may look at it and say that, there are some things that are increasing too. Well, yes, there is a cleaner environment. The air is cleaner, the air is fresher. Families are spending more time together, so there is fresh family togetherness. But on the other hand, there's also financial insecurity. Some of them are losing jobs, some of them are using up their savings, they don't know how long it will last. There are psychological issues, people are feeling stressed out, people don't know what to do at work, the stress level is increasing, and there are reports of domestic violence. Violence within the family itself, you find that the tension is increasing, and whether it is physical violence or emotional violence, it is increasing. So this is a challenge that we are facing. And I think one of the major challenges is that of uncertainty. We don't know how long this is going to last, whether it will be for another few weeks or whether it will be for a few months. The vaccines are being tested out, but at the present moment, there is no vaccine that is readily available. So what the authorities are saying is that just take care. Just don't get infected. If you're infected, we can try this, we can try that, but we have no definite vaccine that is available to us right now. That if you happen to be infected by COVID-19, you can just go ahead and get an injection and you'll be all right. No, unfortunately, that vaccine is still, we don't know when. So there is a lot of uncertainty also in there. And of course, there are many other issues that are being faced. What is the impact on libraries? Well, I think many of you know it better than I do. There are many libraries that are closed or have only restricted people who can come inside there. Restrictions to staff and to visitors. I know there are some libraries that are having staff working on alternate days. You come in on Monday, Wednesday and Friday. You come in on Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday. So there are restrictions. And even the number of visitors that come in is reduced. Visitors who come in, you're supposed to be sitting far apart from each other. There's also the challenge of handling of library materials. How do you handle library materials that have been circulated or have been used? We don't know who has handled the library material before us. So we want to be cautious about materials that come in, and especially materials that come in on interlibrary loan. We don't know who has used them before or who has handled them. So it's a challenge to us. We also have the challenge of providing services remotely. We are trying to provide services online. We're trying to provide services to people whom we do not see, far away. But not every library has the facilities, not every library has the expertise or the experience to do it in there. And how do we share resources and services? I mean, previously, if you had a problem, you could easily tell the person, go to this library and they will have the book or the database available in there. But now, how do you do that? It's not easy for a person to go to another place in there. So how do you share resources? How do you share services in there? And one of the biggest issues is how do you serve people who are in isolation? People who are not able to come to the library for some reason or another, whether it is because they are financially limited or whether because they are physically challenged, or whether they are impaired in some way, they are visually impaired or mentally challenged in some way, they're not able to come to the library. So how do we serve these people? In the past, it wasn't easy, but we were still able to serve people who are visually impaired. How do we do it now when we are not able to send material so easily? So there are many areas where the libraries are also being impacted in some ways. And this is something that we have to consider as we plan what we want to do. We also have to think in terms of what do we do when the libraries reopen? What are the changes that are going to be taking place when the libraries finally reopen? Well, is there going to be what is called a new normal? In the past, anybody could come into the library. In some places you have to be a member, but basically anybody could walk into a library. Whether you get 10 people or whether you get 100 people coming in, it's okay. Now, what is going to be the impact of it? Are we going to restrict people and say, no, you cannot come in because we've already reached a maximum number? Or how do we provide this service in there? Well, we don't know. So this is one of the challenges that we face of what is going to be the new normal. Do we limit the number of users? Do we limit the concentration of users? How do we promote hygiene in the library? In the past, if somebody comes in having a cold or having a mild cough, it's okay. We've got enough cleaners around that the library is clean. Now we are very cautious about it. Anybody having a cough, anybody having a cold, anybody having a sore throat, anybody having high fever, well, we are cautious about these people. How do we promote that hygiene in the library? How do we keep the staff safe? Our staff are interacting with many, many people. How do we make sure that our staff remain safe? We do not know the person who is coming in, what he or she is carrying, what his status is. We take precautions, but at the same time, we are not sure. We don't want a situation where our staff themselves are affected by this virus. How do we manage with the public communication? We want to tell people what we are doing, but at the same time, people have certain expectations, people have certain wants from the library. How do we tell those people about it in there, to those users in there? So there are many changes that the libraries are going to face when the lockdown is over and things start returning to normal. We don't know how long this COVID-19 will last. Whether it is going to be a few weeks or whether it is going to be a few months, we don't know. In Malaysia, we've had what we call MCO, a movement control order, where we are restricted from moving. They have relaxed a little bit in the last few days, but this next partial relaxation is supposed to go on until August 31st. So for the next 3 months, we are still in some kind of cautious mode. Whether this will extend or not, we don't know. I'm sure it is a situation in India. What will happen after this lockdown is relaxed? What do we do after the lockdown? What needs to be done when things are a little bit more relaxed? As mentioned in the previous slide, what is going to be the new normal as we move in there? So there's a lot of changes that are going to be taking place because of this COVID-19 lockdown. But I want to point out that COVID-19 is just one of the many changes that are taking place. There are many other changes that are taking place: social, technological, economic, cultural, political, and perhaps others too. Let's just look at some of them. Social changes. We now have families that are living apart, not just within the same city or within the same country. There are many within India itself. You may be based in Chandigarh, but your family members are working in Delhi or some other city in there. But within India, there are many families who have got family members who are based in Canada or in Australia or United Kingdom or in Sweden or some other places in there. I'm sure within this audience itself, there will be some of your family members who are living far apart. So while we are able to communicate with them electronically online, but there's also a time where they need to travel. Now, in the past, there was a lot of travel. If you go to any of the major airports, New Delhi or Chandigarh or Bombay, you find lots of people in there. Well, this is changing. How are people going to go back to the mode of traveling? We are connecting by social media, whether it is Facebook or whether it is WhatsApp or Instagram or other means in there. We are connecting with people. But this is also having an effect on libraries. Previously, if I wanted some information, one of the sources would be the library. Now, well, I can post that question on my WhatsApp chat group, and I probably get an answer almost instantaneously. So what is the impact that this social change is having on libraries? It's something that we need to consider. There are also technical changes that are taking place, and Professor Shashi Singh spoke much about it last week, so I will not go into in detail. But people are connected. People are connected through emails, through online, through mobile phones, and so on. There is great use of mobile phone. Almost everybody has a mobile phone. Some people have more than one. So this is increasing. The internet usage is increasing by the second. And if I would go into the statistic of it in there, you could see the numbers are increasing almost every second. So people are facing with these challenges in there. If I wanted something, the library would be one source, but now there are other sources of information. So how do we in the library handle that? Economic changes are taking place. People have more money, but at the same time, they also have priorities in how they spend. The income of the average Indian is increasing, but how are they spending that money? Are they spending it on changing their mobile phone every year or every 2 years? Are they spending it on travel? Are they spending it on fashion? Are they spending it on things? So while they do have money, but they're also more selective in how they spend the money in that. And that's also affecting us. We in libraries, we need money, but there's money available outside. But sometimes we are not able to get that money. So this is something we have to consider. There's capital movement from country to country. People are sending money from overseas to India, and perhaps vice versa too. There's money that is going in and out of the country. So is there something that we in the libraries need to be able to take advantage of, or is there something that we need to be aware of? This is again one of the changes we need to consider. We have political changes that are taking place. Japan had a new emperor last year. Sri Lanka had a new prime minister last year. United Kingdom had a new prime minister last year, and many others. Political events that have taken place this year. United Kingdom withdrew from the European Union. What is the impact of it? We really don't know yet. The US is supposed to have a presidential election in November this year. Whether President Trump gets re-elected or we have another president, we don't know. Whether there will be changes, we don't know. And I think even in India, you are due to have various elections in various Indian states this year. Now, whether they will take place because of the COVID pandemic or whether they will be postponed, we don't know. But anytime you have a change in the leadership, you will have some changes taking place. Now, what will be the impact of the new leaders on libraries? Will they continue to support us? Will they see libraries as something that is essential? Or do they have different kinds of thinking in there? We don't know. So the point is that there are many changes that are taking place, even the cultural changes. Fashions are changing, television programs are changing. Television programs now have greater number of viewers. Of course, there's social media, but so how does the library manage this when you've got the attraction of things to see on television as compared to reading a book? How does a library manage this kind of change in there? So this is again something that we need to think about in terms of the changes that are taking place. So we need to be aware of the changes that are taking place in the world around us. Many of the changes pose challenges. And some of those that I mentioned just now, even in terms of, say, for example, television and social media. There's the attraction of watching something on television as compared to going to the library to read a book. There is the ease of getting information from friends through online or through social media by asking a question as compared to going to the library to read a book or search a database in there. So this is something that we have to face, that the library is facing the challenge. People now have choices. People now have options. Libraries are facing challenges in there. What do we do about these challenges? Do we consider it as a wall that is in there and we just get frustrated about it and say, we can't do anything about it. We need to go over this wall. We need to break down this wall. We need to sort of jump over the wall, or we need to make sure that this wall is no longer there. What can we do about it? Well, some things are under our control, but some things are difficult to change. The challenges that have come across would be difficult to change. We cannot go and say, okay, let's do away with social media as a source of information. We cannot do away with television programs as a source of attraction in there. They are there to stay. So what can we do about it in there? Well, I look at it from a different perspective. I mean, yes, I realize that there are challenges, but to me, the challenges are also opportunities. The challenges are opportunities for change, to do things differently. The challenges are also opportunities for betterment, that we can do things in a different way, we can do things in a better way that will still serve our purpose in there. So this is what I would like to sort of share some of my thoughts with you in terms of what are some of the opportunities that are available and how do we find these opportunities to do things better, to do things in a different way. To me, every challenge is an opportunity to do something different. Yes, we have a wall in front of us. Yes, we have social media. Yes, we have attraction of television programs and movies. Yes, we have political changes that are taking place in there. But what do we do about it? What can we do about it in there? Well, to me, it's an opportunity to do something different. Yes, the challenge is there, but we are willing to change. If we are willing to do something differently, we can manage the challenge or look at it that way. The wall is there. We can either complain about it and say, oh, the wall is there and we can't do anything about it. What can we do? Or we can try and break down the wall, or we can try and climb the wall. Not so easy. Or let's get a ladder and overcome that wall. Let's get a ladder and sort of jump over that wall in some way and get to the other side that we want to. Get to the side where the wall was blocking us from doing what we wanted to. So I think there are opportunities in many of the challenges that we face. It's just that we need to put our minds together. We need to look for those opportunities in there. Now, I think those of you from India would be very familiar with this statement, that the library is a growing organism. Now, we need to change. We need to grow. We as a library, we are an organism. We need to grow with the times. We need to be facing the realities and say, okay, this is what we are facing. But as our esteemed Guru taught us, we are a growing organism. So we need to grow in order to overcome those changes in that. And this is where we need to take advantage of the opportunities that are available to us, whether it's libraries or whether it is as librarians, we want to take advantage of the opportunities that are available to us in there. We want to generate information, we want to find information, we want to use information to overcome those opportunities that are available to us so that we can overcome the challenges that we are facing. We want to be able to generate that information, and we realize that we need that information. And why do we need that? Well, there are many different ways of looking at it, but we can say that we need it for planning, we need it for management, we need it for effective and efficient work that we do, we need it for research so that we can develop new knowledge of what we are doing, we need to keep up to date, we need information for practical purpose, from the simple in terms of what are we doing, how are we doing, what can we do about it. There are many, many different aspects where we need that information. And information is generated in many different ways. We get information through personal experiences, we get information through inventions, we get it through data collection, we need it through meta-analysis, where we analyze the research that is already available to us and come up with an analysis of what we can, how we can use it. We can do research to generate more information too. And this is one of the things that I would like to follow up in the next few slides. In terms of how do we generate more information on what we need to do in there. Well, one of the ways of generating that information, as we mentioned in the previous slide, is through research. Well, what is research? Well, I think many of us, or almost all of us, have gone through a research methods course and we would be familiar with it. Basically, it is a systematic inquiry where we want to describe, explain, predict or control some observed phenomenon. That's coming from a textbook that is very well known by Al-Babi. But in simple terms, research is new knowledge or the use of existing knowledge in a new and creative way. So we either generate new knowledge or we use existing knowledge to address something that we have in there. Whether it is something new that we are using, something new we're doing, or something that we have had before, and we're doing it in a new and creative way in that. So basically, research is the use of knowledge, or the obtaining of knowledge, and the use of knowledge in some ways. Why do we do research? Well, we need it to inform action. We want to do something. What do we do? How do we do? Well, in many cases, research can help us with the answers in there. We also use research to develop knowledge in our field. In the field of libraries and information science is growing. We're a growing organism. So we need new knowledge in terms of what to do, how to do, why to do, why should we do something or why should we not do something in there. And in some cases, and I'm sure it is too in India, it's also an aid to personal success. If you want to get promoted, or if you want to get recognition, or if you want to get some rewards, research does help you. If you have published X number of papers, or if you have a PhD, you do get some rewards of it in there which contribute towards your personal success. I know that I'm currently helping a student from India with his PhD, and he says, I need to get the PhD as quickly as possible so that I can apply for a university librarian's position. Well, the research is helping him, or it's going to help him in some ways. So there are many reasons for us to do research, but what we are looking for here is how do we address the problems that we are facing during this COVID pandemic. So we need research. And I want to point out that librarians need to do research too. that librarians, whether you are a junior librarian or whether you are a very senior person in there, I think librarians need to do research too. The question that I come across very often is that, but sir, I'm a librarian. Why do I need to do research? My job is to handle books or databases or to handle patrons that come into the library or provide the services that are normally being provided in the library. Now you're telling me that I need to do research also. No, the research is to be done by those professors in the universities and those people who are really interested in it in there. I'm a librarian. My job is not to do research. Well, this is a question that I've faced a number of times. I don't know what is the feeling among the audience members in here, but I would like to suggest that whether you're a junior librarian who just started work last year, or whether you're a senior librarian with 30 years of experience, or whether you're a professor or even a retired librarian, we need to get involved with research. We need to be doing research, or we need to be helping people do their research. I'm retired from the university, so I don't have many research projects of my own, but I am still actively involved in research, either by helping people with their research, whether it is for the PhD level or for an article that they want to write, or whether it is in terms of reviewing journal articles or reviewing works that they have done and say that, okay, this is what you have done, perhaps you need to look at this or you need to look at that and to make your research even better. So I think we need to be involved with research, whatever level you are at, whether junior or senior or retired, in whatever way, we need to be involved with research. For those who are still actively in the library field, whether as a librarian or whether as a professor, I think the research for librarians is important. You need research findings for planning. You want to understand the users. You understand who are the users, who are the people who are using the library, what are they using for, what are their needs when they come into the library, are we addressing those needs in there? We need research in order to manage collections and services. We need research to organize for efficiency and effectiveness. What we are doing, is it the best way of doing in there? How happy, how satisfied are the users of the library? We need it for assessing the effectiveness and efficiency of the library services that we are providing, the collections that we are providing. Are they really meeting the needs of the people who are using the library? And are there needs that are not being met? And also, we need to develop the knowledge base. The library is a growing organism. The field of library information science is a growing organism. We need to develop the knowledge base. The knowledge that we acquired in the 80s or 90s, some of it is no longer applicable today. What is it, the new knowledge that we need in the 21st century, in the year 2020? Well, this is where the knowledge base needs to grow as we continue to provide our services. So this is an opportunity during the lockdown as well as beyond the lockdown for us to do some research in terms of what we want to do. Well, the question then comes up is, what do I research on? I have my normal job that I do every day. Now you are telling me that I need to do research. What do I research on? Well, I think there are many areas that are needed for research, whether it is for management and decision making, whether it is for assessment or evaluation, or whether it is for development of new knowledge. There are many, many aspects that we need to do research on. And I think what is important in these times during the lockdown is, what are the user needs during the lockdown? During this period when the libraries are limited capacity, limited services being provided in there. What are the user needs? And to what extent are we meeting those needs in there? Because there are things that need to carry on. Education needs to carry on. research needs to carry on. Normal day-to-day activities need to carry on. So how are we meeting the users' needs during the COVID-19 lockdown in here? And this is one of the projects that I'm involved with together with a colleague. We are looking in terms of what has been the impact of the lockdown on research by the professors and lecturers of universities. Many of them are not able to make use of the library. So how is it impacting their research? And there's another research project that is going on in terms of what is the impact of students who are about to graduate? There are students who are just a few months away from graduation. Because they're not able to use the library, many of the universities have also slowed down. So what is the impact of those students who've had their graduation delayed by a few months or 6 months or so? Well, what has been the impact of it in there? This is something we need to look at. And one of the answers can come through the research that we do. We need research for management and decision making. What is the profile of our users? Who are the people who come into the library? Who are the heavy users? Who are the people that we see in the library every day or at least a few times a week? And who are the light users? We see them only a few times in a year. Well, this is something we want to find out. And more importantly, who are the non-users? The people who come to the library only once in a while. To them, the library is something that is, it's good to have, but I can do without it. I can find all the information that I want on the internet. I just search on Google and I can get the information that I want. The library is not important to me. Why are they not using the library? This is something that we want to look at. We want to look at our collection. If we want to look at what percentage of our books circulate at least X number of times a year. Choose any number, 5 times, 10 times, or whatever in there. What of our books circulate frequently? And what percentage of our books have not been circulated or are not circulating? What percentage of our books have not been borrowed even once in the last 5 years? Well, this will tell you in terms of how much the collection is being used in there. So we need information like that for better management or decision making. We need information to assess and to evaluate our library services. Who are our stakeholders? We tend to think in terms of the users, the students, the lecturers, the public who come into the library. But in some ways, the administrators are also our stakeholders. The politicians are also our stakeholders because they determine how much of money that is going to come to us. So we need to look at it in there. How does that determine the success or failure of libraries? What are their needs? What do they value? If you look at, for example, how do the politicians place a value on the libraries? They are giving out money each year to libraries, or they are approving the budgets for libraries. What is important to them? Well, this is something that we need to look at. We need to look at in terms of the costs associated with libraries. Yes, we know the salaries, we know the cost for books, we know the cost for database subscriptions, journal subscriptions, we know the cost for electricity and water and so on. But what are the costs, total costs that are associated with the libraries? The direct costs and the indirect costs in there. What are the benefits of libraries? This is an important area because at times of financial constraints, we need to look in terms of what benefits are the libraries providing. And we need to measure the benefits and translate them into, in the case of India, into rupees. We are spending X lakhs of rupees on libraries each year. What are the benefits? How do we translate those benefits into rupees or whatever your local currency is? So this is something that we have very little research on. And that's why you find that libraries, especially the heads of libraries and the administrators are always having to fight hard for their budgets. Because people are asking, I'm giving you so much of money. What is the benefit for it in that? So these are things that we need to do research on. And this is something that I hope that at least we can start thinking, we can start planning of it in that. For the development of knowledge base of our profession, we need to look at in terms of what are we doing in our libraries, what are other people doing, what is the basis for our actions, what can we learn from them. And the more we publish, the more we do research, the more we know, and we can share the knowledge, or we can learn from that knowledge from other places in there. When we present our findings from research, other people are able to learn. You listen to a conference presentation, or you read a journal article, or you read a thesis, you look at it and say, okay, this is good. This is something that I can follow in there. Well, comes about from research. Every time we present a paper at a conference, somebody is listening, somebody is able to follow up on it and say, okay, this is what we want to do. So there are benefits to it from the research or development of knowledge too. In terms of how do we conduct research, I don't want to go into the details because, as I said, many of us have gone through an LIS course before where we have learned this. There are many professors in the audience who can teach, who can share how to do research. But basically, this is the flow of it would be in there. That we begin with a research question. What do we want to find out? We do a literature review, and one of the previous speakers has spoken about it in there. We plan our research, we do our data collection, we do our analysis, we report it, and then we disseminate it in there. So the process goes on as we look at the previous research that has been done, whether it's a PhD thesis or a journal article or a conference paper. This generates questions in us and say, this is something that I can do, or this is something I would like to do, or I would like to do something that is related to this in here. So this gives us ideas in terms of questions for ourselves. Anyway, we are all in the library field, and there are lots and lots of books and resources that are available on how to do research. So I will not go into the details of it in that. Let's assume that we have done our research, or we are doing our research. What do I do with my research in that? I finish my research, or I'm finishing my research, what do I do? Well, it needs to be disseminated, it needs to be published, and this is where it is important that the research is not just kept to ourselves, or kept in our library, or kept in our research guides room as a thesis somewhere. It needs to be made available to other people. Yes, when we put it in the library, it is available to people, but how many people actually go and look for a specific thesis or dissertation that we want to in there? Rather, it would be more effective if we present it at a conference, or we share it in some other way, or we write a journal article, so that more people can become aware of it in there. There are many avenues for the dissemination of the research that we do. Conferences, there are many of them going on. Almost every day, there's more than one library conference that is going on somewhere in the world. And with many of these now being available online, it's easy for us to follow. We can also disseminate our research through journals, and this is something that I just want to touch on a little bit more in the next few slides. We can convert our research into books, although it is more difficult, but at the same time it is more valuable. We can disseminate it through websites that we have. We can disseminate through social media. We can disseminate through online means among our friends in there. Many different ways in which we can disseminate our research in there. But it is important that the message goes out. It is important that the research findings are disseminated to the people outside. Somebody will find it useful. Somebody will find it useful in there. I mean, as Sri Ranganathan said, every book has its reader, every reader has its book. Now, if you look in terms of today's world, whatever information in there, whatever information you put out, somebody is going to find it useful. So this is where if we disseminate it, somebody is going to be able to take it up in there. How do I publish my research? How do I publish my paper that I've written out in there? Well, this is basically the flow of what you would do. Once you have completed your research, you prepare the manuscript, submit it to the conference or to the journal that you are targeting. It gets reviewed for quality, for flow, for ideas, for relevance, and so on. Many different criteria that are being used in there. And then finally, the conference organizer or the journal editor will decide to reject or to review. In some cases, it might be somewhere in the middle and say, please make those changes and then resubmit to us again, which is good. What we hope is that they make the decision to accept your work, to accept your paper so that it will be presented at a conference or it will be published in there. And this is where people will be able to follow what you have done. Somebody will be able to benefit from it in terms of what you have done in there. This is a more detailed version of how you would publish a paper in a journal. Basically, starting from completing your research, preparing your manuscript, submitting it, where the manuscript gets reviewed by reviewers, and a decision is made, asked to revise, accept, or in some cases reject. Even if your paper gets rejected, it's not the end of the world. You can still revise it, you can still try it for another conference or another journal so that in some ways the message goes out in there. What you hope for is the acceptance and the publication of it so that whatever research you have done will be of use to someone else. There are many avenues to publish. There are many conferences that are taking place within your country itself, within the region itself, and many that are international. There are also journals, local journals. I know India has got a number of LIS journals. Some of these are very good quality. There are also many, many international journals that are opportunities for you to publish. And also there are other avenues for you in which you wish to publish your work in there. Now, which one you choose, whether it is a conference, or whether it's a local conference, or an international conference, or a local journal, depends on your personal and organizational goals. What is it that you're looking for? If you're looking to publish in a, say, for example, a Scopus Index journal because your library requires you to do that, well, then you would look for an international journal. On the other hand, if you're just interested in building up your resume, building up your CV, then you could just choose a local conference or a regional conference to publish in there. So which one that you would want to choose on would depend on many factors. But I want to encourage you to sort of take advantage in some ways of this lockdown, because there are many conferences that have been converted into online conferences. Even the IFLA conference has been cancelled for this year. The ISL conference has been cancelled for this year, and they're saying we will have online meetings, online conferences in there. Well, this is an advantage to some people because online conference means I don't have to travel there. I don't have to spend money on airfare. I don't have to worry about visa. I don't have to worry about hotels. So I'm saving a lot of money in there, but at the same time, I get to present my paper. I get to share my knowledge. I get recorded. I get recognition for it in there. So even though that there is a lockdown here, remember I mentioned about some of the challenges and opportunities. Well, the opportunity here is that you can still take part in an international conference, get the same recognition for it, but you don't have to travel. You're saving money. You don't have to worry about visas. You don't have to worry about hotels. You don't have to worry about, I have to leave my family behind and, who's going to take care of some of those issues when I'm home. So there are opportunities in there. Now, I want to suggest that even though India is doing well in terms of publications right now, there is still room for improvement. I took this data from Saimago country data in terms of the number of documents that are being published within the LIS area. And this is for the last 5 years. You find that for about 4 years, the number was fluctuating up and down. It was high in 2014, went down for a while, then went up. And I'm happy to know that in 2018, it has gone up. Wonderful. The rank in terms of Asia, still India is at number 2. It's behind China, but you have the capability of closing the gap and perhaps even someday overtaking them in there. Even internationally, the rank is about the same. But again, there are opportunities for improvement. And I think there are many opportunities for improvement in terms of the research and publishing that is coming from India. And here I'm referring to publishing that is at the international level. I'm sure there is much publishing at the local level too, which I don't have the data, but I'm sure somebody could access it in there. There are many statements that have been made in terms of increasing the number of publications, and one of those comes from Professor Preeti's paper herself, which was published about 3 years ago, that there's a need for growth of it, and even though you have more PhDs, but it's not necessarily leading to growth in the number of international articles. Other Indian authors have also commented in similar ways. And another author indicated that more attention is needed to research and publish quality articles in foreign journals. So it's not just coming from me, it is coming from many of the Indian authors themselves too, that you need to be publishing more in terms of quality articles that can be accepted by foreign journals in there. So, coming to the point of publishing the articles and making use of that information in there, we know that there is much information that's available, whether it is through the libraries or through others, media, internet, online, and so on. The question that asks is, how is that information being used? How is the information being used for the betterment of libraries? We who work in libraries or go to libraries are surrounded by information. In fact, we have an information overload. So there is a lot of information available. How do we use that information? I think that is a big question in there. I think one of the areas in which we can use that information is for the betterment. Betterment of ourselves, betterment of our colleagues, and betterment for the libraries. We need to make ourselves better. We need to make our colleagues and other professionals better. We need to improve on our libraries in that. And this is where the continuing professional development comes in. Now, what is continuing professional development, or just abbreviated to CPD? Again, there are many definitions that are given for it in there, but basically it is learning that takes place beyond our first qualification. We've all qualified in LIS. What is the learning that is taken place beyond that? What is the learning that is taking place for developing and improving or enhancing our abilities in there? Well, this is where continuing professional development takes place. And many people tend to think in terms of CPD as being, I go for a conference, or I go for a seminar or a workshop, or I attend a session like this one in here, where a webinar that is conducted by Punjab University, and I'm learning something from it in there. So this is a form of continuing professional development. Well, it doesn't have to be just going for seminars outside or attending a conference somewhere. It also includes workplace learning. Things that you can learn from colleagues, things you can learn on your own from readings, from following sessions online or in different ways. And that's why you find that the term that is used these days is more of continuing professional development and workplace learning, or abbreviated to CPDWL. CPDWL is an important area if we want to improve ourselves. We want to make things better for ourselves, we want to make things better for the library, and eventually better for the profession. Why we need CPDWL? Well, there are many reasons for it. We need to keep ourselves up to date. There are new developments and trends in ICT, which Professor Shashi pointed out very well last week. Users have higher expectations because they are more educated, they have more resources, they are able to access information in different ways. They expect more for the library. And it's not unusual to say that, oh, you don't have this. Or can't you provide that information? Well, the expectations are high. We need to learn new ways of addressing the needs in there. Sometimes the requirements of employers change. I don't know how it is in India, but in one of the Southeast Asian countries, librarians are licensed. You need to get a license in order to work in a library, to practice as a librarian. And in order to renew that license, every few years, you must have X number of hours of continuing professional development. So you need to be attending seminars or workshops or conferences or publishing something in order to accumulate those points for that continuing professional development in order to renew your license. If you don't renew your license, then the authority says, okay, your license is terminated, you cannot work as a librarian anymore. Well, that's happening in one of the Southeast Asian countries. I don't think it's happening in India, but it's something that sometimes the employers want you to do it in there. There's competition from other information professionals in the other industries. These days, there are private services being provided for information. You need information to do your thesis? No problem. For a certain fee, we'll find the literature for you and give it to you. Of course, it sometimes borders on the unethical part that we'll even write the literature review for you. No, that's becoming unethical, but it's not unethical for somebody to help you to find that information. So people don't go to the library anymore, but rather they just pay someone and say, okay, give me a bibliography of materials on a certain topic, and I will follow up for it in there. Well, there's competition. And as Sri Ranganathan said, we are a learning organization, we are a growing organism. We need to be looking at new ways of doing things in there. So we need that continuing professional development. So I think that continuing professional development is the responsibility of both library managers and individuals themselves. Sometimes we hear comments that, I would like to go, but I'm not getting the permission to go. My manager, my director is not approving to go in there. So I think this is where the library managers, and I use the term broadly, managers to include all levels of supervisors, that they also have a responsibility that if you want the library to be better, you need to allow for librarians to go. But at the same time, librarians themselves must also be involved in CPDWL. So I think the continuing professional development and workplace learning, there are opportunities to learn, there are opportunities to share, especially during this COVID-19 lockdown, because there's time available, there's widespread availability, there are many seminars or webinars available, and they're practically free. I mean, this webinar that Punjab University is conducting is the 16th in the series, and I presume there will be some more. So here it's widespread availability of these webinars that are available to people, opportunities to develop ourselves, and this is not the only one. There are many others that are going on. I'm already committed to conducting 2 more, and I received a request yesterday itself. Sir, can you do one for us? Yes, the details are being worked out, but there are opportunities, there is widespread availability of these webinars, opportunities for continuing professional development. Within the library itself, there's opportunity for self-learning, for books, online resources, including social media, professional organizations through IFLA or national organizations, structured learning opportunities. There are many courses that are now available, some of those at low cost, a fraction of the cost as what it would cost to actually go there, and some of those that are free. I don't know about in other countries, but in Malaysia, the Ministry of Human Resource Development linked up with one of the foreign course providers and said that you can take these online courses for free for a period of 3 months. Well, it's an opportunity. I don't have any feedback as to how many people have taken advantage, but this is an opportunity there. Conferences, seminars, workshops, and even you can have focus discussions with your colleagues in there. All you would need is to get together over a meal or even, while you're having a departmental meeting or something, that if you can focus on, say, okay, let's discuss in terms of how do we talk, let's talk about, say, open access journals, all right? That can be the focus discussion on some topic that you choose in there. So what I would suggest is to make use of the opportunities during this COVID-19 lockdown to get involved with some professional development and workplace learning. Some of the opportunities that we can use in enhancing the libraries in there, some of the issues that are being faced outside. Stress is a common problem during this COVID-19 lockdown. Among families, among workplace, well, what can we do? What can the libraries do? Well, one of the things that we do in libraries, perhaps not to a large extent, is on bibliotherapy. So can we organize bibliotherapy sessions that in some ways help to reduce that stress level within the family or the workplace or in some other ways in there? Of course, it needs expertise. We need to be knowledgeable enough to conduct the bibliotherapy sessions. But this is what CPDWL is all about. We learn something, we put that knowledge into use in there. Many places, they are having lots of jobs. Well, what can the library do? Provide information on career opportunities, provide information on entrepreneurship, on self-development. What are the skills that you can learn? What is it that you can do to improve yourself so that either you can get a job when things open up, or you can do something on your own so that your income is still there. Perhaps reduce, but you still have an income coming in there. So again, opportunities that CPD can be used by the libraries in there. Another challenge that we are facing is in terms of schools and colleges are being closed, and there's a need for teaching online. And some of the feedback that I get from students is that, yes, they're just putting the slides or materials online. The teachers are not prepared to teach online. And I'm bored. I can look through the slides at any point in there. I can listen to it any point in there. So the teacher is not prepared for how to teach online. Well, this is again the library could do in having workshops or online sessions in there in terms of how do we teach online effectively. We may not be doing it, but there's a lot of information available outside that we can synthesize from the various resources, put it together as a package and make it available so that teachers, lecturers, professors are better able to do their job. So another opportunity for using CPDWL for the betterment of the library. So there are many other opportunities that are available to address these challenges that are being faced during the COVID-19 lockdown. So we have about 7-8 minutes or 10 minutes left, and I'd like to summarize what I've been saying. Basically, I think the point is that there are many changes being faced by libraries during the COVID-19 lockdown, and there will be changes that are taking place after we open too. So what is going to be the new normal in that? There are challenges, but there are also opportunities in that. And I think we can take advantage of some of the opportunities through research, publishing, and continuing professional development and workplace learning to improve ourselves, to provide more knowledge, to make the library and librarians better in terms of how do we provide those services. So basically, after listening to me for 1 hour and 20 minutes, I think the message, if you don't have anything else, the one message that I hope that you will be able to take home is that there are many changes that are being faced by libraries. The COVID-19 is just one of them, but we need to take advantage of those changes that are in place. And I think through research, publishing, and CWL, there are opportunities we can take advantage of for new knowledge to share as well as to develop ourselves. So I hope that you will take advantage of the opportunities for the betterment of yourself, for the library, and for the betterment of the society. I'll hand you back to Professor Preeti if there are any questions or comments or suggestions in that.
Thank you, Professor Diljit Singh, for your highly informative talk about the challenges which not only the countries are facing as far as their economic terms are concerned, educational or political due to the COVID-19, but also the libraries who are also facing social, technical, economic, political and cultural changes. And you very rightly pointed out that we have to convert these changes or challenges to opportunities so that we can reflect upon ourselves to make us better professionals, to share knowledge for the betterment of the profession and to also to serve our clients. And librarians, you very rightly pointed out, must update themselves to overcome these challenges and take advantage of the opportunities. And we must take action plan for research, publishing, and continuing professional development in short as well as medium term in future, especially for post-COVID opening up of the libraries. Thank you once again. Now, may I request Simran to take up the questions and answers, please? Professor Diljit, you can stop sharing the PPT so that we can have a direct one-to-one with you.
Sure.
Am I audible and visible, ma'am?
Yes, you are. No, not yet. Just wait. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. A very good afternoon to all of you. Should I take up the questions now?
Yes, Simran, you can take up the question.
The first question I am taking up from the Professor Jagtar from Punjabi University, Patiala. What we shall do with the books that will be returned after COVID-19?
This is from Professor Jagtar Singh, is it?
What we shall do with the books that will be returned after COVID-19 to stop coronavirus from spreading?
Right. Is this from Professor Jagtar Singh?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Good morning, Professor Jagtar. It's been many years since we met, so we are meeting online after many years. Okay, to address your question, I think there are procedures that have been put forward in terms of how do we disinfect the materials that are coming back into our libraries in there. There are guidelines that are available that have been put up by various libraries. I believe even IFLA has put up some guidelines in terms of how do we handle materials that are coming back into our libraries from outside. Whether they are being returned by the patrons or whether they're coming back from interlibrary loan or whether they are new materials that are being sent to us by the vendors, the suppliers. We need to be taking precautions in terms of that they are clean and be able so that material is not a source of the transmission of the infection. Although in the last 2-3 days, WHO has indicated that this is not so serious a concern as the direct transmission from somebody who's already affecting it. I don't have the details of it, and I don't know whether this WHO statement will be challenged by the medical professional or not, but I think it is better to be more cautious rather than to be responsible for the spread of the virus in some way. So I'll be happy to share them with you at some other point, but there are guidelines available on how to disinfect the materials that are coming back to the libraries.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is from Dr. Kalyani. Is there any rule or regulation by UGC to give fair representation to librarians?
I think this is best answered by Professor Preeti or somebody from India itself. I'm not so familiar with the UGC regulations in there. So perhaps that person or somebody else from India can best answer that.
I think they can go through the website of UGC to find out the answers. Thank you. Next question, Samrit.
Yes, ma'am. Next question is from N. Srinivas. When the books get lost, how to maintain records as per auditing library norms?
This, I think, will be dependent on individual libraries, or perhaps if it is a university library, then the university will have some policies on it in there. That when the book is lost, I think if you can indicate that when you first became aware that it was lost, and if you took any steps to recover the loss of it in there, I think that should be enough. This, I think, what the auditors, I mean, in reality, the auditors are not saying that you should have zero losses. The auditors are saying that, okay, we realize that a certain percentage do get lost, but what did you do about it? What did you do to try and recover that book in there? And perhaps in terms of your policy, what did you do to prevent such losses from recurring in the future? So I think as long as there is documentation in terms of what did you do when you realized that the book was lost? Either the user reported it was lost, or the user sort of just didn't come back to you, or the user sort of after graduation sort of just disappeared somewhere. I think this is something that the individual libraries or within the university framework itself, you would have your own policies in there. And as long as you can document it and show it to the auditors, I presume that they will be satisfied with it.
Okay, thank you, sir. So the next question is from one of our participants. I am working on the topic competency of library professionals. Which international journals can I send my article for publication?
Well, I think there are many journals that you could send to. What I would suggest is if that person can contact the organizers, and the organizers, I don't mind, I will not put my email address there, but the organizers can give you my email address, and then you can contact me directly, and I'll be happy to talk with you. Because basically, in terms of which international journal, there are a number of factors to consider. One, what type of journal are you looking for? Are you looking for SSCI index journals or Scopus index journals or any peer-reviewed journals in there? Do they have to be, what kind of articles do they publish? You're doing research on competencies, okay, so which journals would be publishing about competencies? When if you send it to a cataloging and classification journal, the journal is going to say, forget it, we're not interested. So you need to choose your journal carefully. Also in terms of what is your research about? Is it something that is, that would be of interest to an international journal? Or is it something that is more related to a local journal in there? So what I would suggest is you contact the organizers for my email address, write to me, and I'll be happy to work with you on a one-to-one basis.
Okay, sir. Thank you. So next question is from Saliq Ahmed. Libraries represent an aspirational notion of democracy institutions that welcome anyone who wishes to become a more informed citizen. However, they were caught off guard as they have not leveraged ICT in their services. In current pandemic, there are few libraries better equipped to reach their patrons in the best possible way Do you think libraries need to go through transition to stay relevant not only in COVID-19 but also such issues like infodemics that came with it?
I think you would have studied and deliberated more about Ranganathan's fifth law better than I have. So if the library is a growing organism, you cannot be staying just by yourself 5 years, 10 years, 20 years behind in there. So I think without going into the details of it in there, yes, the library needs to keep up with the times. So whatever the new areas that are there, whether it is infodynamics or open access or whether it is, whatever the areas that are of importance to your users, that's why I say that it is important for you to know your users. Whether you're a public library or a special library or a university library or a school library, you need to know your users. So what is important to them? I think this is where you need to take that into consideration and then, of course, change your library policies, collections, services, management according to what the users need. Because if the users suddenly realize and say, the library is not doing what I wanted to do, thank you very much, I don't need the library anymore. If more and more people start thinking that way, you find that one of these days the politicians are going to realize and say, nobody is using your library, you might as well close it down. Forget it. So I think, short answer to it, yes, you need to keep pace with the changes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next question is from Tarvinder Singh Handa. Is there a difference in LIS education and the way library services are rendered?
Could you repeat that question?
Yes, sir. Is there a difference in LIS education and the way library services are rendered?
Yes, there would be, because there are LIS education. In India alone, you have got more than 100 colleges and universities that are providing LIS education. So while there may be guidelines and standards on it in there, but they will focus on different areas. So what they have learned during their LIS education years, what they go back to it as they practice will of course be different. And then we have to realize that the students who go through in there, some will be distinction students and some will be just passing students. Some of them will be gold medalists and some of them will be, barely passing their examinations in there, but they will still become librarians. So they will be providing different levels of service in there. So this is where there will be already differences in the services that are being provided in there. There are, UGC does control in some ways the quality of LIS education. You also have organizations like DLIS, which sort of have some guidelines of it in there. There may be other ways of determining, how the quality of education is controlled. But the quality of education is just on the provision, the provider, what is being received by the students and how they practice with it. There are many other variables that go into it in there. Just like in any class in a school or in a university, you have 20, 30, 40 students in there. You have one teacher. There will be some who are scoring distinctions and there are some who are failing. Why? It was the same teacher, it was the same lesson that was being provided, but they learn it differently. So, yes, there will be differences in the provision of LIS education and in terms of the services being provided in there.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now I don't find any other question that need to be answered, and thank you for a highly informative talk which would be very beneficial for the LIS professionals as well as the research community. Now I request Dr. Khushpreet Singh to deliver a vote of thanks to Professor Diljit Singh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I, on behalf of Department of Library and Information Science, Punjab University, Chandigarh, and my own behalf, I thank Dr. Diljit Singh, Professor retired from University of Malaya, Malaysia, for accepting our invitation to deliver this wonderful talk. Thank you, sir, for delivering a highly informative and interesting talk. I also thank the PU authorities for allowing us to organize this webinar series, as well as for providing us the WebEx platform to organize this series. I also thank all the participants for joining us. Thanks are also due to the faculty, research scholar, and students of the department for their support. Thank you. We will meet again on 17th at 4:30 p.m. Till then, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kushpreet. May I remind all the participants that we have a time change for 17th, as Dr. Kushpreet has already said. We have an international webinar again, which is at 4:30 p.m. So all of you are requested to join us at 4:30 on 17th. Till then, stay home, stay safe. And as Professor Diljit said, welcome the challenges and convert them into opportunities. Thank you all. Thank you.